Welcome everybody to the Critics Corner. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun. I'm here with uh, David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine. How's it going?
Mortal Kombat! Ding, 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 ding. Okay, I'll stop. So to tell you what movie we're watching today.
well, I guess the cat's out of the bag there. So subtlety is not your name here.
Hey, to be fair, neither is this franchise. So
no, not at all. Not at all. Well, truth be told, you know a lot more about Mortal Kombat than I do as far as their backstory. I just grew up playing a lot of the video games at the arcade, not really caring much about the backstory, but wanting to, pummel my opponent in the octagon. So, it was more about that for me than the storyline and, killing an hour while my mom shopped for groceries. So,
That's entirely fair. And there's definitely a lot of killing in this movie. So,
true.
As you said, cat's out of the bag. Movie we're talking about this week is the reboot to the all-time fighting game champ Mortal Kombat.
First learned about this 7 years ago on a mission in Brazil to capture a wanted fugitive. When we got there, it tore through our unit in seconds. The target had superhuman abilities. It had the same marking you do, Cole.
It's a birthmark.
What do you mean?
He was born with it.
It's not a birthmark, Cole. It means you've been chosen.
Throughout history, different cultures all over the world reference a great tournament of champions. That dragon marking? I think it's an invitation to fight for something known. As Mortal Kombat.
These are your champions.
I'm Sonya. That's Kano.
I'm Liu Kang.
Name's Jax.
Kung Lao. Lord Raiden. The fate of Earth is in our hands.
No matter how many of my people we put in the ground, we will not fail. Kill them.
I am Sub-Zero.
Wins. You fucking beauty.
This is a new rendition of Mortal Kombat for the modern era. As many of you may or may not know, there was an original film released in 1990 that was a lot sillier, a lot more hokier, a lot cheesier, but still a lot of fun, and it had a good story to it. This one is a new retelling of the Mortal Kombat franchise. Long story short, covers the rivalry between Ninja's Scorpion and Sub-Zero, played here by Hiroyuki Sanada and Joe Taslim. And it basically chronicles their relationship and how it's kind of rolls down the lines through the years, how their story progresses, how their story lives beyond their original rivalry in feudal Japan. So, and you're right, Andy. There's a lot of different fans that go into this kind of movie. There's fans like yourself that played the original arcade games. There's fans like myself that are into the newer titles. And I'm going to start with the positives, which is I feel like regardless of wherever you land on that scale, if you are a Mortal Kombat fan, this movie's pretty fun. Has a lot of characters that you recognize from the games from both eras. Has a lot of really cool fight sequences, a lot of stunning visual effects, and really, really bloody fights. Like for the fans that were missing the fatalities from the original 1990s movie, this movie will give you a lot more of the violence you're looking for.
Definitely. You know, and speaking of the movies from the 90s, you know, Mortal Kombat in 95, then Mortal Kombat Annihilation in 97, those were horrible movies. Oh my gosh. They need to be wiped away and forgotten about because they were so bad. But this one, it provides definitely a redeeming quality to the franchise. I would say, you know, you don't have to be a Mortal Kombat fan to go see this movie and have a good time. If you're a fan of like generic kung fu movies or martial arts movies, you're gonna like it. And that's how I'm taking it. I mean, there for people who watched those movies or were part of the video game craze in the 90s or the arcade machine, there's definitely a lot of inside jokes that you will get and appreciate a little bit more. I definitely got a lot of those. We saw this movie together. You were laughing your butt off through 90% of the film, I don't know which was more entertaining, watching you or watching the movie. And
I was kind of having a moment.
Some of the looks you're getting, dude, were very interesting from people.
I was getting into it, man. Like, cause like you said, there's a lot of humor in this movie. One bit in particular where one of the characters, Liu Kang, spam moves a particular opponent he's fighting. And if you've ever played a fighting game, you know the frustration of that. So moments like that are just kind of clever. And, you know, that plays into the whole fandom of this. A surprising amount of the comedy from this movie, though, comes from a character named Kano, who is a mercenary played by Josh Lawson. This guy's just a scumbag. He's just pure pig, snobby, you know, D-bag. He's ripping on everybody. And he's easily the funniest character out of the whole movie. It's not often, usually comedic characters come across as really hokey or silly or, you know, just kind of falling over themselves. This guy's just smug. He's just smug and disrespectful and dismissive and nobody cares. And he was great to watch in the movie. But the movie isn't just, it doesn't just have good comedy. Like I said, it also has great fight sequences. Sub-Zero in particular is a force to be reckoned with in this movie. I really love how he's played up kind of as like a horror villain archetype, how he's just slightly off frame in some shots, and how just atmospheric he can be. He was amazing in this movie. Sub-Zero was done very well. And also Hiroyuki Sanada, the tragedy of his character, Scorpion, also done very well. There are other characters that aren't done as well as those characters are, but I'll get to that later.
Oh, definitely. I would agree with you. Kano is definitely the comic relief in Mortal Kombat. You know, he definitely creates that, he breaks the ice in a lot of serious scenes.
No pun intended.
No pun intended at all. Well, I would agree with you. The fight scenes are incredible. They're very well choreographed. You can see that a lot of time and effort was taken into making a product that was really just appealing to the fans of the series and to just martial arts in general. Granted, there are things that definitely are CGI. You know, one character shoots fireballs. You know, Sub-Zero grows ice out of his hand. I mean, stuff like that. Granted, you're going to expect that to be computer generated, but just for the real, you know, fighting stuff in the movie, I thought that was actually very well done and very entertaining.
Yeah, the fights were, and the choreography was surprisingly raw and dirty and grimy. Like it felt like a fight you were experiencing in a video game. Like it felt, it was just brutal, and that was something I think was missing from the original 1990s Mortal Kombat movies. I will disagree with you that the first Mortal Kombat movie is as bad as Annihilation. I completely disagree with you. Annihilation is horrific, but either way, whether you lean towards one franchise or another, this movie is definitely more intense as far as the fighting goes, and that's something I loved seeing in this movie. And even in the first 15 minutes, like you and I, we watched the first 15 minutes of this movie. First 15 minutes of this movie is amazing. It's tragic. It's heartbreaking. It's emotional. It's highly stylized, brutal violence. Like, it's everything I wanted the opening of a Mortal Kombat movie to be. And if you had to judge this movie based off of its beginning and its end, perfect. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
That being said, after that amazing opener we got, we go into the modern day and we focus on this character named Cole, played by Louis Tan. Cole is not a character from the video games. He is an original character made specifically for this movie, which wouldn't bother me. I'm not against original characters being introduced in movies. What I'm against is them being boring. And Louis Tan as Cole is just generic. He is so sickeningly generic. I felt like I was having Marshmallow Puff shoved down my throat. Like he offers nothing unique or interesting, not in the same way that the other characters in this movie does. And the fact this movie focuses on him, the fact that the movie's emotional crux is on this character that is neither interesting nor funny nor charismatic nor emotionally engaging, none of those things. He's just a filler character. That's a problem, and I would say it was one of the bigger problems with this movie.
Yeah, I would agree. The character Cole, by Louis Tan's portrayal wasn't really. He wasn't good. He wasn't bad. He was just mediocre. And it kind of felt. I don't know. This is not a comparison, but I'm gonna do it anyways. Those movies you'd watch in school where you'd be taught kind of like a life lesson or whatever, and those characters were very cheesy to a point. It's like, oh, Billy, yeah, now I know I'm not supposed to smoke cigarettes, or something like that. I mean, he kind of came across as that generic, insert character here kind of person. I wish he would have had a little bit more to give to the audience, but because, like you said, he's the focus of the film. We're telling his story, how it affects him and his family, and just he is the person that's moving the narrative forward. And you didn't get a whole lot from Louis Tan in his portrayal here of Cole.
Yeah, and to be fair to Louis Tan, he's a good actor. I've seen him in other movies before. I thought he was really funny in Deadpool 2. That's his most recent film appearance that I've seen. But the problems with Cole in this movie aren't just with him, and I would even say not even mostly him. It's the way the character is written. It's the way the character is portrayed. It's the way that the whole story revolves around this really bland character. And that's not just a problem with Cole. That's a problem with a lot of the characters in this movie. Whether you look at military, agents like Sonya Blade or Jax, or you're looking at mercenaries like Cabal or Kano, or if you're looking at Shaolin like Liu Kang and Kung Lao, to the straight up even the villains like Shang Tsung. All the characters appeal are surface level and nothing else. They feel less like fleshed out characters and more like avatars you play as in a game, like for a fighting match. And for a movie, that's not enough. Like, it's enough if you're wanting to watch a bloody and vicious fight, for sure. But if you want a story, you kind of have to delve into these characters' personalities a little bit, and this movie just doesn't. The most underutilized character in this movie, and I will not forgive the movie for this, Tadanobu Asano, the guy who plays Raiden, Lord Raiden, the Thunder God, Earthrealm's protector. There's a spectator, and he doesn't do much beyond just, talk ominously with his lights, lighting up in his eyes, and just generic. One of those interesting characters in Mortal Kombat lore. And he's nothing. He's a placeholder in the movie. And I'm looking at him like, these characters deserve way more than just superpowers and visual effects on the screen. They need to have some depth to them. They need to have some layers to them. And this movie just doesn't live up to that.
I happen to agree with you. The characters were definitely surface level, likable. I would say the only one that really people got into was probably Kano. For the most part, but I think the director and the writer took elements from Jackie Chan, took elements from Chuck Norris, and mixed them together with Bruce Lee to put out a martial arts movie. And like I said earlier, if you're not a Mortal Kombat fanboy like yourself, you're gonna like this movie. It's entertaining. It will make good for a Friday night or a Saturday night, or anytime you go to the movies or watch it at home. It's a good filler movie, but it's nothing that will has any lasting power to it, so to speak.
Exactly. It's very fleeting. It's very temporary. It's very you're gonna find a better movie like this very quickly in the future. And honestly, you could probably find some way back if you look back far enough. The way I see this movie, and I can't remember if I said this to you after our screening, Andy, the movie feels like it's trying to adapt the video game Mortal Kombat and not the story of Mortal Kombat. And there is a difference between the two. If you're going to this movie looking for vicious, bloody fights, gore, just, all the fatalities in the world and superpowers, visual effects, highly stylized martial arts, you'll think this movie's a fun time, and it is a fun time. But if you are a more invested fan of the lore of Mortal Kombat, of the characters, their rivalries, their relationships, and, all of the things that drive them and move them forward, this movie is not going to deliver on that. So I think going in with the mindset of I'm here to enjoy the spectacle, the sensation, the blockbuster appeal of this movie, and not really the emotions behind it, I think you'll have fun. Is it as fulfilling as it could be? No, but it is fun. And I fairly give it credit where credit is due on that.
Definitely. And I think it's unique that we have each side of the coin. We're speaking from our own experience, where you are more and more, I guess, invested into the lore, into the story of Mortal Kombat, where me, I'm a more casual fan, where I just grew up playing the video games at the grocery store or the arcade as a kid, or on NES. And I think that speaks well of both sides of the perspective there. I think it's time to give a rating on this movie. So, out of 10 stars here, what do you give this?
A pretty confident 6. I do lean a little bit more towards 5 story-wise, but with Josh Lawson's performance as Kano, with Joe Taslim's performance as Sub-Zero, Hiroyuki Sanada as Scorpion, and with the really, really impactful and fun fights, I think it's meager entertainment. That's the best way I can describe this movie.
Yeah, I would probably give it 7.5. Just as a person who just grew up playing the video games. I mean, entertaining. It's nothing that will it'll fulfill a need on a Friday night to see something that's new, something that's a new release, from the studios that are slowly coming back and trickling back out into theaters. If you're not ready to go back, it's on HBO Max. But if you don't see it, it's not entirely a big loss.
Nah, like I said, meager. I will say I'm eager to see the sequel. Like, this movie takes place before the Mortal Kombat tournament in the games. I'm really curious to see how this universe and this franchise expands, and what happens when you bring more characters in the fold. Maybe it'll be done better in the future. Either way, I hope this movie gets a sequel, and I hope the sequel does better justice to the characters than this movie did.
Oh, definitely. And it left the door wide open for that possibility for them to create a sequel. I mean, yeah. So let's see what they do. Hope maybe their second attempt will be a lot better than this one, and maybe give something more for fans like yourself to really sink their teeth into and just dive in on.
For sure.
So I think that's going to wrap this up for this edition of the Critics Corner. So if you have any thoughts, suggestions, questions, comments, or just, hey, go review this kind of suggestion, we'll be more than happy to hear us. Hit up on the email, or leave a comment in the section below, and we'll be glad to get back to you on that. So that's going to do it for today. So we will see you guys back here next week.
See you next week.